It's 3 o'clock now, so can we make a start? Welcome to Cabinet. The date is Tuesday, 21st of September. It's now 3 p.m. Welcome to Cabinet, all Cabinet members. Membership of the Cabinet, we've got everybody here. The only person that's not here is Councillor Naheed Mather, who's not well. Any declaration of interest, if you have any? Councillor John Taylor.
Thanks, Shabir. Item 12, I'm the Alternative Director for Kirklees Sewers Recycling Limited.
Right, thanks, Councillor Taylor. We'll, if we can just complete the form and Andy will take it. I was looking on the screen and saying, oh, Councillor Martin Bock's not there, and I'm thinking, I'm going to miss him. But lo and behold, Martin, you're here in person. Nice to see you. Anyway, I won't encourage you too much, but it's always a pleasure to see you, Martin, and I mean that genuinely. Nice to see you doing well. Item 3, admission of the public. We don't have any members of the public. Any deputations or petitions, Andrea? No. Thank you. Questions by members of the public. We haven't got any members of the public, so there is no member questions. Members of the public questions. Item 6, question by elected members. We've got 30 minutes for this item. Councillor John Taylor and then Councillor Martin Bolt. John, over to you first.
Thank you, Shabir. It's actually a question to Councillor Davis, and it concerns our finances. And my question is, does he feel that the financial outturn report that has produced properly reflected the current situation of our finances and the support that's been provided through COVID?
Very short answer, yes I do. Very confident of that. And as you know, John, we've been exchanging information, and I know you've asked some further questions which I'll be following up with email in terms of what you've raised in your last email.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. We could hear him, we could see him as well. Oh, you couldn't hear him, I could see him, so I was assuming that you could see you as well and hear you. Councillor John Taylor, supplementary?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have to disagree with Councillor Davis, and just at a very simple level, if I can just outline. When the budget was set for 2020-21, a budget was set for £302.3 million. In the outturn report, it shows that the council spent £307 million, which is roughly a £5 million overspend compared with what was anticipated to be spent. However, the council received an additional roughly £68 million in either ring-fenced or unring-fenced grants from the government to cover COVID support, which would suggest that having set out a financial envelope and collected a council tax to meet the need of a budget for £302 million, we obviously received those funds, but we also received £65 million from the government. So, sorry, £68 million from the government. So how can we say that the financial outturn report clearly shows the actual expenditure that was spent and the impact of COVID, when actually what you've got is £50 million that's moved into reserves? So effectively, we've got huge underspends in departments that weren't clearly shown in the financial outturn report or the accounts, and we haven't shown how the funds that we got from the government that haven't been used yet will be clearly used. So I wonder if the board would like to comment on that.
Yeah, sure. As I said earlier, we've gone through this into more detail with Councillor Taylor, and Councillor has raised some issues which I picked up yesterday and discussed with our head of finance. And again, we've looked at this, and I'm very confident in terms of the outturn, but very, very happy and in the process of doing this anyway, in terms of answering Councillor Taylor's email to us, and that will be done this week. But actually, his interpretation in line with what finance have produced is not correct in that regard. So it will be clarified through our head of finance and myself.
Thank you, Councillor Paul Davis, and thanks, Councillor John Taylor, for bringing that question. And I understand that from what Councillor Davis is saying, that you're already in conversation with Councillor John Taylor, and the number of questions that have been asked, you are getting clarification on that, and that clarification will be sent over, because we just need to get the facts straight. That's all. Thank you. Councillor Martin Bolt. Martin?
Thanks, Leader. And may I be the first to offer you congratulations. I believe in the not-too-distant future you may be elevated to the House of Lords, if what we're told is correct. So I'd like to congratulate you if that's appropriate. The new Road and Street Works Act for highways gives certain criteria under which roads should not be dug up again. For example, what's called a capital reconstruction, a full rebuild of a road, has a 5-year period when utilities and others should not dig up the road surface again unless it's an emergency. And obviously the council gives advance notice for to plan works. Do you agree with me that it is unacceptable for anyone to start digging roads up and wasting expense within those timeframes unless it's an emergency?
Thank you, Martin. Before we start, let me put that rumour to bed once and for all. I have not been elevated, nor have I been approached by anybody whatsoever, for the House of Lords. I'm very much a firm leader entrenching Kirklees Council, and that is my first and foremost priority. So let me put that rumour to bed, because sometimes rumours start and they become news, but in this case it's completely fake. In terms of your question, Martin, regarding road resurfacing, the answer is very, very clear. You know, the devil's in the detail, but on the face of it, if you're going to do a road up, then unless there is a very clear rationale, a very clear reason, a very clear business case, or an emergency, then you wouldn't want to rip that road surface up. But again, that is a general statement, but already it's devil in the detail, and I think I know what your supplementary is going to be, because like I said, it's not as straightforward as this is what you do and this is what you get. But I'll wait for your supplementary.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it is fairly straightforward that if this council is spending money resurfacing roads, then it should protect them for as long as possible. The public quite rightly criticise when the roads are dug up. And as I said, under the RASWA, the new Road and Street Works Act, a 5-year period for a reconstructed road. So when it's a utility, it's bad enough. But when it's yourself, this Cabinet and the Council that are proposing to dig a road up within a short space of time of this Council and its staff completely rebuilding it, then that's even more reprehensible. The road in question, the A62, the main road into Huddersfield and out of Huddersfield from North Kirklees to the motorway, it's actually a road in Calderdale, but this council has taken on the responsibility for resurfacing it at a cost of £1.6 million, due to be completed by the end of 2021 this year, which, according to other documents, Kirklees is intending to dig up again in early 2024, well within the 5-year time frame for which planned works should not be taking place. So to the members of the public out there, is it worth spending £1.6 million when we now have a £77 million scheme coming along in 2 years' time? Aren't there roads in Kirklees where that money could be spent and have a greater life expectancy, a better cost-benefit ratio? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin Bolt. The road in question, A62, is a Department for Transport funded scheme. So it is a scheme that the government is actually helping us deliver. And I completely agree with the government that they have actually got it right this time. The Department of Transport does come under a lot of fire, but on this occasion I think they've got it completely spot on. As Martin will know, that this was due to be commenced on site in 2019, but because of the pandemic, we could not go ahead. The start on site scheduled date is now later on in this year, I believe October 2021. And any works that may be due in the future, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. There's a lot of schemes that are in the pipeline. Martin, you will know that ever since I was a lad, there's been talks about all sorts of roads going from Calderdale through to Murfield, through into Sowelltown and back to Thornhill. I'm now in my 50s, a bit younger than you, Martin, and I still anticipation to wait and see some kind of a new road that's going to be built. So, but one thing I can assure you of is we are going to do that road, because Martin, you will know that you've raised a number of issues with me on the A62. That road does need resurfacing. That road does need addressing in terms of the flooding problems. That road does need doing in terms of putting proper cycleways, and there's a lot of things that we actually do need to address, and that's a priority. And that's why I think the Department for Transport are completely right in actually funding this road. But having said that, anything we do will be complementary to any future road schemes that will be developed. Thank you, Martin. I've got councillors Munro, Lawson and Hall, who are all virtually online. So I will bring in Councillor Alison Munro first. Alison, over to you.
Thank you, Shabir. My question is, please can you tell me what the council is doing about the 3,200 or so unclassified residential roads that require mending across Kirklees?
Unfortunately, Councillor Mather, whose portfolio this is not here, and it would be unfair of me to actually try and have a guess in terms of the details. But what I will do is I'll make sure that Councillor Mather, as soon as she is well, to respond to you directly via email. Thank you, Councillor Munro.
I did have a supplementary question to that.
Yes, you can.
Please can you tell me why some roads that were prioritised by our group in their final top 5 priority list were not included in the list that was sent to Cabinet, or they were moved to the bottom of that list, compared to other roads that were approved that were not on the priority list?
Right, I don't know the details of your particular ward, Alison, but I do know that where other wards were asked to feed back and give their views, the order of priorities, from my understanding, as they put forward, were in the report. But obviously it's not just an issue about what ward members think, it's also an issue around condition survey. But as far as I know, every single ward that put their allocation forward were in the report. In your case, in Almonbury, what I will do is I will ask Councillor Mather to come back to you and have a look at that, because it sounds a bit odd that ward members were consulted and your finalised list was not the one that you put forward. But I'll get Councillor Mather to come back to you on that. Listen, thank you. Can I bring other members in and I'll come back to you, because there are other members. But I will bring you back in. Next question is to Councillor John Lawson. John, question from you, please.
Thank you, Leader. The warehouse development on Whitehall Road in Cleckheaton puts a lot of emphasis on employment as the redeeming feature of the application. This raises a question about the types of jobs on offer. Do you believe that employment opportunities in Kirklees should be market-led or shaped by council to fulfil our own ambitions and priorities?
John, do you want to just repeat the question? I didn't hear the first bit. My apologies. Just repeat the question again.
That's fine. The warehouse development on Whitehall Road in Cleckheaton puts a lot of emphasis on employment as the redeeming feature of the application. This raises a question about the types of jobs on offer. Do you believe that the employment opportunities in Kirklees should be market-led or shaped by council to fulfil our own ambitions and priorities?
Thank you, Martin. You're referring to the completely unfounded rumours that have been circulating over the last couple of months. As far as I'm concerned, the planning process is a separate process where we don't have any say or any influence or any decision-making power on that. In terms of employment, my view is very, very clear that we want to make sure that any employment has inclusivity built into it. We need to make sure that we get the right jobs in the right places. We make sure that we actually improve our skills base, and jobs that we needs to be the ones that actually pay the living wage, B, we need to make sure that any jobs that are created are high-end, high-value jobs. In terms of the individual application, I don't want to make any comments whatsoever, because already there have been, again, unfounded allegations that are made against me, and let me make sure that I put that to bed. And I've also had a conversation with you, John, that I do not have any impact, any influence or any view on that particular application. Have you got supplementary?
Yes, please. Just to be clear, I wasn't making any reference to any rumours. I was asking the question strictly about employment policy in Kirklees. Can you tell us if that's the case, that we are looking to be as strong as possible on all kinds of jobs? When we come to high-skilled jobs and apprenticeships, can you tell us how you are going about bringing that policy into practice? Because at the moment, what's on offer in this particular space, and I'm thinking about other spaces allocated in the local plan as well. How are you going to make sure that those high-skilled jobs and apprenticeships are on offer to our residents?
That's a very good question, and it's $1 million question, isn't it? And it goes back to what you're talking about. How do we influence market forces that we cannot have a direct influence over, or we don't have any power over? So it's through working with the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. It's also working with local enterprise partnership. It's also making sure that we actually work with business to make sure that they actually address issues that are dear to our residents. And at the same time, one of the key priorities for me is inclusive growth, to make sure that we actually get the growth that is not the old trickle-down economics that we are used to. Any growth has got to be benefited by everybody. We can't have a situation, and we can't have a society where the well-off gets even more well-off and the poor gets even more poorer. So this council will do everything it can to make sure that we influence the market, we influence the market forces, but having said that, we don't have any direct power over that. So what we will do is we will continue to work with government, we will continue to work with West Yorkshire Combined Authority, we will continue to work with the local enterprise partnership to make sure that, you know, we actually do create an environment where we get the best skills, the best apprenticeships and the best jobs for our local people. Thanks, John. Next question is to David Hall, Councillor David Hall. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Leader. I hope you can hear me okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I've been asked to ask this question on behalf of a resident who would have been here to ask it herself, and I said I would raise it because it's an important issue. The lady's name is Kay Mulligan, and she's a business owner in Huddersfield Town Centre. She's got concerns about the impact on the town centre of any delays in passing on COVID grants, and the manner in which these had to be applied for, such as the online application, which she says turned a lot of people down until they actually rang up and spoke to someone, and then the answer was yes. And the first question is that, can an internal review be conducted giving us info of how much money central government passed to Kirklees and how it was distributed? That's the first question.
Yeah, so from what I heard, Councillor Hall, can a review be taken of where the grants were distributed regarding the COVID grants that were allocated through government? Is that correct? And if that is the case, I can't see why not, unless... actually, I've got Councillor Paul Davies who's willing to answer this. Paul, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Hall. I seem to recall we had a question from Councillor Bellamy at full council a while ago, which I provided Councillor Bellamy with a report about how we distributed the business grants and how many. Very happy to do an update on that and provide another update on that. I don't think it's particularly a need for a review as such, because we, as part of our processes, we do this on an ongoing basis. We look at that information. So yeah, very happy to provide that to you, Councillor Hall.
Is that okay, David? Have you got supplementary?
That's appreciated, yes, please.
Kirklees' recent news of slashing rents is more than welcome, but again, empty units are down to lack of grants, so the decision is late in the day and also soul destroying for those who have already lost their businesses. Do Kirklees have any other plans for helping out businesses in the town centre? For example, parking charges, making the town more accessible, or anything to attract and increase footfall? Thank you.
Can I bring Councillor Peter McBride? Peter?
Yeah, sorry. We are constantly evaluating the possibilities of making the town more viable, but there are no particular plans to, bailout sounds a very, loaded term, but to support additionally given businesses which are adversely affected by the current situation that they endure. And I do understand their problem. But the council can't resolve all of those problems and therefore is working with business insofar as it can to address the problems.
Thank you, Councillor Peter McBride. We'll go on to the next person on my list, which is Yusra. Councillor Yusra Hussain, your question, please.
Good afternoon, Leader. Good afternoon, everyone. My question is to Councillor Paul Davies. It's a simple question, I hope. How does the library service look to provide a service to vulnerable citizens in Kirklees?
Councillor Paul Davies.
Thank you, Yusra. Yes, certainly. I've been visiting our libraries over the last few months as the portfolio holder and very proud of what we're doing. And very good question in terms of highlighting, I think, the support we provide to all of our citizens, but particularly our vulnerable citizens. And I don't know if people are aware, for example, but our library service has just been awarded a very prestigious, I can't even talk, Libraries of Sanctuary Award. And this is all about providing a safe and neutral space for refugees and asylum seekers. I think an absolutely amazing recognition of what our library staff do in absolutely helping these very vulnerable individuals with successful resettlement and integration. Obviously, we provide books and information, but in particular, what we're trying to do, and very successful, is making sure that's provided to people who can't afford that themselves. So certainly the work of the library staff is about combating disadvantage, utilising books and reading to also help our citizens increase their self-respect and their self-esteem. Another very important part of our library service for our vulnerable people in our communities is the IT support. And all of our libraries have PCs, and these are used to provide support to these groups, including homeless and many job seekers, offer them free access to the internet and online learning. This clearly will improve their digital skills and helps us with digital inclusion. And in particular, I think when I talked to some of the teams when I went round, what they see more and more are children who haven't got access to the internet at home, using our services in the library to keep up to date and helping them to be more included and obviously to help them in terms of their education. The libraries aren't just about that, they're also about providing spaces for people to come together socially and in particular to combat loneliness. Again, just to make people aware, we've been shortlisted for a Libraries Connected Award, and this is for a work on a particular initiative which the title is not exactly one which you probably want to use, but it's actually called Death Positive Libraries, which sounds pretty awful. But actually what it is about taking away barriers about death and dying through a range of innovative activities that appeal to diverse communities. And as we all know, this is a subject which none of us want to talk about, none of us want to communicate about, but our libraries are there helping people to deal with these difficult circumstances. So again, we have to commend our staff in doing this. Clearly we work with schools, as I mentioned early on, we work with children, and we also provide opportunities for language development within our libraries as well. So one thing I would really want to point out, and something which impressed me about what we've been doing through COVID and still doing it now is how we actually reach out to people who can't get to the library. And we provide a service in conjunction with the Royal Voluntary Service, whereby anybody who needs access to books who can't come to the library, we will drop those books. But it's more than that. During COVID, these volunteers were doing some remarkable work in terms of supporting generally a lot of the elderly citizens within Kirklees, helping them with all sorts of things from, you know, just putting a new bulb in the room to actually doing a little bit of shopping for them as well. But also, they were there to have a chat and to help with that loneliness. So hopefully I've given you a flavour that our library service is far more than just doling out a few books. It's far more than just having PCs, which are absolutely very useful as well and help people, but it's about how we actually connect and work with our people. And I see the libraries, I think, very much at the heart of Kirklees and what our ethos is as a council. So thanks again, Uzra, and thanks for the opportunity to be able to address this in Cabinet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paul Davies. Councillor Yusra Hussain, have you got a supplementary?
No, I don't.
Thank you for your question and thank you for your response, Councillor Paul Davies. Next question is to Councillor John Taylor again. John, over to you.
Thank you, Shabir. It's unfortunately it's a question to you again, Paul. Feels like we're picking on you today. Thank you for your written response to the question that I asked at full council. However, it didn't really answer the question that I asked. So if I could just ask the question again. I asked how many vacancies we have, and the response I got was unoccupied positions, which aren't necessarily the same thing. So could I ask how many vacancies we have and how long the earliest has been outstanding for? I just wonder if he wishes to address that now, because that wasn't answered in the written response. Thank you.
Councillor Paul Davies, can you answer that question, please?
Yeah, one of the issues we have, we don't have a separate HR system to the SAP system to SAP. So SAP records this as unoccupied, and you're quite right, Councillor Taylor. I can't remember the exact figure. It was over 900 unoccupied positions. From memory, I think there was something around about 350. Don't hold me to exact numbers in terms of offers that are currently out. That in terms of recruitment. So if you did a simple maths on that, if each of those offers was taken up, it gives you approximately that, the 500 to 600. However, I'm being very approximate in that regard, and I could certainly get a further update on where we are on the recruitment. But that gives you a sense of where we are. Many of the roles in the unoccupied criteria, so the numbers in the unoccupied criteria are not necessarily individual roles, and I think I'm fairly certain I explained some of that in the email, but if not, I could follow up with you on that. Some of it will be about roles where, for example, somebody's been seconded elsewhere and we will not be filling that role. It'll be about, in some cases, a role that's been put forward but hasn't been verified as a vacancy as well. There's a whole range of things. And of course, as I said, it'll be covering roles where offers are already out. In terms of the length of the roles, the vacancies, that could be done, but it's a very arduous task to go through SAP to do that, because you have to then start highlighting specific individual roles, looking at each of those individual roles and working from there. And frankly, from my perspective, and I'm in discussions with the head of HR, the key focus of the team is, rather than going back and interrogating in micro detail some of this, is actually on recruitment. And that's where they're actually focusing all of their efforts at the moment, to find ways of attracting individuals to Kirklees. We've got huge competition, I think everybody's aware, nationally and regionally. By the way, we're in no worse or better position than other authorities. Everybody's facing that. I was actually on a call this morning in terms of the Employer Association, and a number of the authorities were saying there that they're losing people to the private sector, particularly drivers, as we know, because of the enhanced salaries or packages being offered by some private hauliers now and some private companies. So in terms of us going back and examining detail, I'm very happy to look at any detail which I think helps us in recruitment, but what I do not want to do is divert people away from actually being in HR, being out there and actually recruiting staff. But by all means, I'm very happy again to go through the detail with yourself, John, but that gives you a little bit of an overall picture. As I said, they're very approximate figures from my memory. I haven't got the figures to hand, and if you wanted to go through them exactly, then more than happy to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Paul Davis. Councillor John Taylor, have you got a supplementary, please?
Yeah, thank you. Just for clarity, it's 907.42 against a workforce of around 8 and a bit thousand. So it's more than 10% of the workforce. I mean, there are multiple questions I really want to ask, Paul, but my concern is if we haven't got a handle on how many vacancies we've got, how do we know we've got the right recruitment policies in place? Because, again, my question about the earliest one, does that tell us something about we're having problems in particular areas in recruiting if we've had a vacancy for a long time in a particular area? If we don't know where the long-term vacancies are, do we know if we're targeting our recruitment activity in the right area? So these are questions I want to explore, and I would welcome an opportunity to bring this to scrutiny, because I think we need to have a look at how we know we've got problems with recruitment. So what else is there we could be doing? What could we do? Because we're constantly, as councillors, being told things can't be done because there's no resources, because there aren't people in post. So what are we doing to tackle that? Thank you.
Councillor Paul Davis, can you answer that supplementary, please?
Yeah, I think Councillor raises some very important points, absolutely. In terms of us knowing where we've got the issues, absolutely we do. HR works very closely with line management, and certainly line management in terms of all our service areas are absolutely not slow in coming forward in terms of where they've got issues. So that information is there in terms of where specific roles are causing us issues and where we have problems in terms of attracting individuals into those roles. So certainly that information is there. In terms of what's being done, certainly HR have taken a number of different routes, but absolutely, again, you know, if there are thoughts about you know, about how we can improve that, then that's fine. I see no issue in input from scrutiny. Recently, the website has been redeveloped. Certainly, lots of work being done on apprenticeships, and I know that from within my own portfolio area, where we've attracted a number of one example in Welfare and Exchequer, a number of apprentices rather, and you know, it's a number of things actually that we have to do as authority. But you know, one of the key things is to get that message out there that working in the public sector is not just fulfilling, but actually provides you with an excellent career, with great development, with support and training, and to provide a positive image of what we do as a local authority. It probably does us no good sometimes when, you know, the negativity around public sector and public sector service, when people are looking at employment and they see sort of negative stories around local authorities, then I'm sure that's a turn-off. So I think one of the things that we really have to do is to ensure that what we get out there are the positives about what we provide, what services that we provide for our citizens, but also the fantastic opportunities people would have working for us. So I think that's down to officers. It's also down to us as councillors, and hopefully, yeah, you know, you never know. One day we might even get the support of our local media on that. So we'll wait and see for that one.
Thank you, Councillor Paul Davis. I think your question is very comprehensive. We've gone over time, so unfortunately I can't take any more questions. But if members who are here want to ask any questions, please do email me or my cabinet members, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. The next item on the agenda is item 7, Adult Social Care Capital Programme, Knoll Park House and the Homestead Capital Schemes. Councillor Muscan, can I ask you to introduce the item? Over to you, Ms.
Thank you, Leader. I'm seeking Cabinet approval for proposal to fund 2 new daycare facilities to support adults living with dementia in Kirklees. This £11 million investment in new facilities will provide essential daycare services for our residents living with dementia and support their families. A £6.3 million investment in Knoll Park House in Mirfield and a £4.7 million in the Homestead in Almonbury will mean continued high-quality services that achieve positive results. The proposals were based on work with service users, carers and staff who helped to shape the plans. We will be taking advantage of the latest research and technology to enhance support for our elderly residents in Kirklees. Both new proposed schemes benefit from improvements to the environment by using the Stirling University dementia-friendly design standards to improve accessibility for all. Once open, the new flexible space could allow for access on evening and weekends to meet the needs of people in a more flexible way and to provide wider range of support for family carers. Works will commence first with Knoll Park House. That will also have a centre of excellence. The centre will offer advice and support for people with dementia diagnosis, their carers, and adults and children with other physical and sensory disabilities. The facility will showcase to people how areas of home living design and new technology can help them make positive changes to their current accommodation. There will also be opportunities for partnership working, and the focus will be on early intervention, so people are better able to stay independent for as long as possible.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. I'd like to second that report. Any questions or comments from Councillor Martin Ball?
Thank you, Leader. Thanks to Councillor Khan for that introduction. Ward members have been heavily involved, and I'd like to thank officers for their consultation and time when talking us through this. As has been said, this will be a centre of excellence. It's an ideal location on the edge of Knoll Park, so a place where people can be cared for but also get out into the fresh air, and I look forward to seeing this come to fruition. On the issue of adult social care, while we've got this item on the agenda, could we have an update please on what the Cabinet are doing with regards to the military covenant, another item of adult social care which is, I'm sure, quite a concern to many of us?
Thanks, Martin, for the initial comments and your supportive comments around the actual scheme. But in terms of the covenant, I'll ask Councillor Khan to respond. Councillor Khan?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Bolt. I don't have that information to hand, but I can get it to you.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. We'll get that information over to you, Martin. Cheers. Any more questions on this item? I don't have any more members putting their hands up. Can we all show our hands to approve this report? Thank you, members. The next 2 items have got 2 items that are also in private session. So the first is strategic property acquisition, 1820 Corporation Street and 17 Founders Street, Dewsbury. There is a private report under item 11, which has exempt information. So I'm assuming that members have read that. Can I just have a nod to say that we've read that? Yes. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go through item 8 first, and then we'll take item 9 and we'll go through the same process again. So item 8, Councillor Firth to introduce.
It's on the edge of the arcade. Already has a lift shop in. I've been in that many times over the years. And I think it makes a significant contribution to through into the top part of the arcade, which there are bigger buildings and upper floors, which will make not only this building but the arcade more valuable. I think members are well aware that we are moving the market shortly. Well, I'm saying that in the new year. And perhaps we may not have enough space, so that will make a valuable contribution. But perhaps reciting some of the storeholders as well. So going forward, it really will work. It's a great idea, and as I say, only will add to the blueprint in Dewsbury, making a significant difference. I'm looking forward to it, and I do applaud the officers' initiative of actually purchasing or proposing the purchase of this building.
Thank you, Councillor First. Councillor McBride, to second.
I endorse what Eric says. This is a very logical acquisition. It enables us to access the arcade for work still to be completed, and that is very necessary. And also, the building in its own right is a valuable one. It's sound, and it can be developed, and it will be a natural extension of the arcade development. So there's a coherence about the whole strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Peter McBride. I've got Councillor John Taylor, and then I've got Councillor Martin Bolt. John?
Thank you, Chair. I have no problem with the proposals before us today, although I do have a number of questions. The first question is, why is this coming forward now, and why wasn't this brought forward as part of the proposals when the arcade was purchased? And secondly, we've yet to see a business plan for the arcade, never mind a business plan for this. And my concern with these, and we keep buying up buildings, is fine, we're buying them up, but we need to have a clear purpose of what we're going to do with them before we start spending council funds. So if anybody's able to articulate what the use of this building will be and whether there is that business case. It may be that that's in the private papers, and I understand why they're private, and I'm not questioning that, but it would just be good to have some confidence, because we had this with the George Hotel and we still haven't seen a business plan for the George Hotel. So my concern is that we're buying retail space at a time when there's a surfeit of retail space, but I'm not seeing the clear plans about how this is going to be used. So it's just a worry that we probably need to be looking at and address. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Eric Firth, you want to answer that? Why now? What the business plan is, and why we're buying it?
As far as the business plan goes, we've got to get someone or a number of people, a body of people, to actually manage the arcade. And I think that process is ongoing. But I do know that Mr Hill, who was organising the refurbishment, Chris Hill, tells me there's already over 34 small businesses interested in going into the arcade already. And unfortunately, I think there's only 17 shops. So they will be able to have a pick, if you like, of the best businesses and a fit. Because obviously we don't want half a dozen of the same businesses in the arcade. So it will fit. And this building, as I said, with former JMBs and the old former Leeds Building Society, will add to that. And I'm sure members, all of you members, and I'm sure the town board will be delighted that we are actually doing this.
Thank you, Councillor Firth. Any supplementary, Councillor Taylor? Councillor Martin Bolt.
Thanks, Leader. I welcome, obviously, steps to improve town centres and the appearance of our towns. One issue which I'm sure Eric will agree with me needs looking at is Pinfold Hill in Dewsbury. As you approach Dewsbury from Huddersfield, from Murfield and other wonderful areas, Pinfold Hill is on the left next to what used to be the electrical wholesalers. There's a listed building there which is a former police call box, which was raised at a district committee probably 3 or 4 years ago by a former policeman about why it wasn't being looked after. And there's the disgusting sight of a burned out shell of a building on the edge of a row of terraces. Now, in the past, Cabinet bought the old Anchor pub and knocked it down because it was an eyesore. Can we look at what can be done at getting rid of one eyesore, but also showcasing is the only brick-built police call box, I believe, still in existence. We've got the old-fashioned TARDIS one in Almonbury, but there's a brick one, which I believe still has some, within it, has some highways control gear for when they used to heat the road surface under Webster Hill. But as we heard at District Committee, yeah, it's the only one of its kind. It's a listed building, and I think, yeah, we should be showcasing it rather than just letting trees grow out the roof. But on those two items, if necessary, will you meet me on site, and can we do something about them?
Councillor Firth?
Yes, leave it. I know all about this, Martin. In fact, I raised it, if you remember, at our meeting many years ago. I don't think it's listed, by the way, but it's quite right. It's the old police box. People will not. Well, Martin obviously older than I thought. If he remembers when we used to heat Webster Hill before we made it into a dual carriageway. It was the first one in the country, actually. Because there were innumerable crashes down Webster Hill, and when the local authority, the forward-looking Dewsbury Town Council at that time, thought, what can we do with it? They actually put under-road heating in it, and they took over that old police box and put all the switchgear in there. It didn't work very well, by the way. I do remember it well. It is a mess. And I tried to get the area committee, that's what it was some years ago, to give some funds to actually at least point it and clear the area. Well, we cleared the area, but it never got pointed. And we need a volunteer, Martin, if you can do any fun. Yes, sir. Very good at pointing.
Liberals are better at pointing than the area.
I wouldn't go there, Martin. As for the derelict building, it's a bottom. Pinfolded is like that, if you can imagine. The burnt-out building is the one at the bottom. Demolition, I think, is maybe not the right answer, because they all fall down. Who actually owns it, I do not know. We certainly don't. Perhaps we can make some inquiries to see actually who does own it and their intent to do something with it going forward. I will ask the question, Martin.
Thank you, Councillor Firth. You can.
Thanks for that very helpful comment, Eric. You wouldn't let me anywhere near anything to do with DIY, but in the words of, I know a man who can. Why don't we have a word with Kirklees College and see if they have some building apprentices or people doing something like that that would be able to do that as part of their work, and as you say, then in future years they can tell their grandkids, like, they did that. And in terms of a forward Dewsbury authority, yes, that's probably when Liz's granddad, Harry Oldroyd, was on, so it was probably very forward thinking in those days.
Councillor Firth, do you want to respond?
I will do just that, as Martin suggests. Will I get anywhere? I do not know, but I will ask.
So the man from Dewsbury say yes. Councillor Cathy Scott. Cathy?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not too sure. Is it in our ownership? That was one of our questions I was going to ask, because this was raised by other councillors going back to the area committee, if I remember rightly, and the police were surprised to know that place actually existed. So just to put that out there, so I think you need to check the ownership before we point anything. Not pointing fingers, pointing buildings. So, okay, so this, regarding the purchase of this building, I fully support the acquisition of these premises, as it's going to further support our ambition with this blueprint in Dewsbury. And people moan that things are going slowly, and then when we start to do something, we're questioning about why we're doing it. And I understand that maybe there's not enough information out there. I must remind people, and councillors too, put the links out on your Facebook so that people can click into the links and see papers that are coming forward to Cabinet on what's happening. So yeah, I fully support it. I think it can only further enhance Dewsbury. And I think it's some great work that's been done by officers.
Thank you, Councillor Cathy Scott. I've got Councillor Taylor wants to come back in, and I'll bring you back in at the end, Eric. John?
I'm just coming on the pointing police buildings. If you find you don't get anywhere with Kirklees College, Why don't we look internally? We've got our own apprenticeships that work in, you know, building services. Could they not possibly take it on as an opportunity? It's just a suggestion.
Plan B, I will ask.
Was that yes again?
Yes,
yeah?
Plan B.
No, man from Dewsbury is saying yes again. Thank you very much, members. I don't think we've got anybody else putting their hands up, so can we just have a show of hands to approve the report? Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item 9, waste disposal interim contract arrangements. We've got a private item on the private session under item 12. So can I take it that we've read that report, members? Okay, thank you very much. That's a yes. So Councillor Will Simpson, over to you.
Thank you very much, Leader. I want to begin, before I talk about the parts of the report that we're able to discuss in public, by thanking the officers that have been involved, in particular Will, Sue and Laurie, but all of the team as well, because I think to have delivered this under the pressure that they've been under alone would have been incredibly impressive. To have done the waste strategy alone under the pressure they've been under has been really impressive, but to have done the two concurrently and have, you know, the waste strategy with us at the last cabinet and this with us now is an incredible achievement. So I do thank them for all of their work. Obviously, due to the commercial sensitivity of the negotiations, this is the first time we've been able to discuss parts of this report in public, so I feel it's important for me to provide some context and explanation of what this exciting interim agreement means for us and for our residents. As we know, we're now nearing the end of our 25-year contract that was signed with Suez in 1998. At the time, it was visionary what it delivered for us, and it has been one of the cheapest waste contracts in the country for our residents. But times change, and what we want to deliver has changed as well. Our waste strategy, which was approved by Council and Cabinet recently, sets out the vision for the ambitious improvements we plan to make, with a doubling of our recycling rate, further reductions in our waste to landfill, and longer opening hours at the HWRCs being only 3 of our many ambitions. For a long period now, our outcomes have been determined by our contract. We're now reversing that, and our vision for a greener Kirklees set out within the waste strategy will drive our plans for the new contract. But we're impatient for change, and we want to begin by making a difference now. That's why I'm pleased to be bringing forward a new interim agreement with Suez. This will mean that we're delivering early on some of our ambitions, creating a more flexible agreement, and putting ourselves in the best possible position for procuring our new contract. Among other benefits, the interim agreement will allow us to collect additional plastics, such as pots, tubs and trays, in the green bin sooner than expected. It will allow us to extend HWRC opening hours earlier than expected. It will reduce the amount of waste that would be sent to landfill, and it provides handback arrangements for the multi-million-pound facilities, which reduce the risk to the taxpayer and will reduce the potential cost of our future contract. Were this interim agreement not negotiated and being agreed by Cabinet, Suez would be able to revert to a reduction in our landfill diversion rates of the legal minimum, which is 65%. This is almost 1/3 lower than our ambitions, and we would face considerable additional revenue costs under such circumstances. We would also not benefit from the additional plastics, longer HWRC hours, and we would not have the modern handback arrangements which reduce the risk to the taxpayer. Such circumstances are far from ideal, and our team have done an exceptional job in negotiating an interim agreement which not only mitigates against risks, but is an incredibly positive agreement which brings forward some of our ambitions early and shows that we're serious about delivering. The interim agreement has been discussed at pre-decision scrutiny, and our plan received endorsement from members of all parties in attendance and our non-political co-optees as well. Colleagues, I hope we'll get such unanimity today. So I will be moving that we accept the officer's recommendations as outlined in point 7 of the report.
Thank you. I'd like to second that report. I've got Councillor John Taylor who wants to speak. John?
Thank you, Chair. Just very, very supportive of this and just wanted to come in. I've had the advantage of being part of that scrutiny panel, so I've seen the confidential papers as well. It's a really good piece of work done by officers, and I echo what Will said about the fact that they've managed to do this at the same time as progressing the waste strategy. I love the fact that one of my favourite things in here is about the commitment from the council to put effort into community education, because it's something that I've been talking to officers about for a couple of years now, about how we can engage people in terms of better understanding how and what we can recycle and trying to drive up those recycling rates. So I have, I just wanted to come in and be very supportive of this agenda item today, and add my thanks to those of Will for the officers that pulled this together and did what is always a difficult thing when you're in negotiation with a third party. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor John Taylor, for them supportive comments. Any more? Councillor Martin Ball?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. As John said, it's something that's been a long time coming and a lot of work gone into it, as well as looking at the way that we're disposing of waste. Is it part of the Cabinet and Council's intention to reduce waste so that we're not just producing, like with packaging or other items? If we can do waste reduction, then simply it does cut down the amount of waste removal, doesn't it?
Yes, Martin, that was in our waste strategy. It doesn't relate to the waste disposal, but it is part of our waste strategy. And I now look forward to your supplementary promoting Shepley Spring Water.
No, not on this occasion, but on the issue of waste reduction, then, it's surprising that there are 5 pages in the report that I've got that said this page is left intentionally blank, and that's printed across 5 pages. There are 4 pages that are blank that just says this document is restricted. So 9 wasted. Well, yes, perhaps if you had colouring by numbers, you'd probably do better at your portfolio. So there's 9 pages printed out multiple times with only document restricted or this, and it always makes me wonder why you print across the centre of a page that it says this page is left intentionally blank when it isn't blank it's printed on. But can we reduce waste, Will?
Martin, we left that page intentionally blank for you to jot down your thoughts. It's a shame to see that it's still blank at this point in the meeting, but yes, I take your point.
The meeting's been very good so far, so let's not. I don't find that people having a bit of a joke, but we are still in public session, so it's good to have a bit of humour in these meetings. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you very much, Will, for presenting that report, and just like to echo what Councillor John Taylor and Councillor Martin Ball said, that it's a very complex piece of work, especially after 24 years of a 25-year contract, when you are coming to the next phase in terms of what we need to do, and to actually have an arrangement in place to allow them negotiations to take place is really, really positive. And I'd also like to add my thanks to all the officers who are working extremely hard. So well done, and let's make sure that we now get through this and get something in place that's even better. But once again, John, thanks for your very supportive comments. Can we all show hands that we are okay with this report, members? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and that is the end of the meeting. So good night and God bless.